Perfect. All right, we're recording. All right, so we're here today to do our Key 4 post-conference. I have Emily Purser right here and Drew Freeman. Kind of what we wanted to talk about today was how the strategies worked. The pre-conference, we talked about the different strategies, and kind of like I told you, we were ahead of the game. We incorporated a lot of the strategies for our classroom behavior, since that was our peers goal. Review of our peers goal is going to be the classroom behavior. We're trying to eliminate the talking that we were seeing in the classroom, which you've done a great job. Like I said, when we say the talking, really, it was 2 students. So you had 2 students right there that are kind of like I was when I was 10 years old, right there, or even younger, very active. They were engaged in all of your discussions and engaged in all of the learning, but just trying to figure out different strategies. And we talked about a couple of different strategies: is positive environment, the expectations. What worked well for you? And I saw a lot when I was in there doing the Danielson. What did you think that went well during a lesson then to help them?
I think that a combination of setting clear expectations as well as positive reinforcement was the most beneficial, helping cut out the excess talking.
Yeah, and I know we incorporated quite a few. So, I mean, like I said, you went with it, made it your own right there, adapted with what works with your philosophies. And definitely the positive environment is definitely something that I took away from our first conversation, because at that age we got to make sure we're staying positive with them. We want them to come to school feeling that they're safe, and being able to express any concerns to you. So I thought you did a great job in that observation that I was seeing. And then you got an opportunity from this to see a couple of different teachers. I know that you spent the whole week kind of observing Miss Lieberstein. Can you give a little bit of just detail on that and kind of what you learned from that experience and what you took away?
Yes. So some of the things that I saw in Miss Lieberstein's classroom, of course, were some of the things that we were implementing already, which was, the positive reinforcement. She focuses really heavy, making sure that she's using the PBIS system, just reminding students about earning those points and really referring her expectations back to the PBIS system that we have in the school. She also uses proximity control really well, which is something that I kind of found difficult before observing her, just because I felt like having the 2 students close to me also put them next to each other. But being in person in her classroom kind of helped me see how to keep both of them close to me, but still apart.
Yeah, just because they're closer together might be a better management tool. And she does an outstanding job. Veteran teacher right there. Speaking with her, I mean, you learn something new every day. So I'm glad you got the opportunity to go and see her for sure. She does great with classroom management and behavior. So it's a very good one to go and see right there for sure. So with that being said, I know I got a couple of questions that we wanted to ask from the post documentation of it. And it was kind of the same thing. There was about 14 questions. It says, we have looked at many different strategies focusing on the classroom environment. What was your most beneficial, which you stated was more the positive learning environment? Why would you say that was your most beneficial? Is it easier to kind of control that, or is it the one that you saw the most success with?
I do think that it is easier to control and also the most successful, paired with setting the expectation. Before, without, I guess I did not always consistently set the expectation, especially like verbally. So just consistently reminding them those expectations at a 2nd grade level really helped.
Yeah, them definitely understanding, like we've talked about in previous conversations throughout the school year, them knowing what it is. And I mean, sometimes in 2nd grade, like we were talking about in our pre-conference, there's a lot going on throughout the day. So they do forget, and those constant positive reminders and resetting those expectations. I know this one's off our questionnaire, but do you have a classroom expectation? I know you mentioned Miss Lieberstein of having more. She follows the Hawk expectation, which is outstanding with our PBIS system. Do you have your own certain expectations in your classroom, or do you just go off of the Hawk expectations?
We do follow the Hawk expectations, and then we actually have like a couple more, like in a matrix that kind of explains like, what does have respect mean? You should raise your hand and wait. So it just kind of breaks it down a little bit more, but there's only 2 for each. So like for have respect, you should raise your hand and wait to be called on. And we use like sentence stems, talking stems whenever we talk, so that they know how to respectfully talk within their small groups. But basically it's just based off the Hawk expectations.
No, that's perfect. That's why I wanted to ask that, because when I was in there doing the classroom observation, I noticed that you did do a good job of breaking it down. And really, when the matrix, we don't want to overwhelm them. So you did a great job of setting clear expectations, but not giving too many, where there can be, that what they kind of describe of it, or what they're kind of taking away of it. You set clear expectations in your classroom. So excellent job with that.
Thank you.
Now, moving to question 2, during the classroom observation, all students were on task. Do you think the strategies are working and will continue to work throughout the school year? Why or why not?
Yes, I do think that they are working, because I have seen improvement in the amount of talking. And I do think that they will continue to work as the students, just become more familiar with what to do.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. After that last observation, I mean, doing the Danielson, the data definitely shows that we could move on to another peers goal if we're wanting to. Now, that would be just a later conversation with us to see if we wanted to move in a different direction, or if you're feeling, that we might need to stay in that, just for you to continue to get comfortable with that. But outstanding job. Like I said, I did not have any classroom distractions with that. All students were engaged within the short math lesson that I saw, and then also the reading comprehension lesson. So outstanding job with that. And then setting those clear expectations, like you said, with a positive reinforcement. All right, we're continuing our peer goal in the classroom environment. Do you think that it is time to move on to a new specific goal, or do you want to continue to develop strategies to eliminate excess talking? So kind of what I was just saying, that we'll have a little bit later conversation, but just hearing your thoughts on that. Do you think it's time to move on to a different strategy or different focus point in the Danielson?
I would say that we probably could.
Mhm.
But also at the same time, just to continue to monitor to make sure that the strategies continue to work, a little bit long term.
Yeah.
And not just now.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think that, the planning phase of the domains and everything, and also the instructional, you're not struggling with it all. Your pedagogy, you understand exactly what you're doing. Your instruction is based upon the assessment data. Your small groups, they're running flawlessly throughout. So I don't see a need to move on to those. The only other thing that we have would be the professional responsibilities, which like I said, you're in the leadership role position in your 3rd year. So I think you're doing an outstanding job there. Administration also thinks so too. So that's always a plus. And then the classroom management, just continue to try to modify those goals to what we see and adapt with those 2 students is the only thing. Just give it a little bit more time. But if we need to see that we want to move on to just to try to challenge or something different, we definitely can.
Perfect.
All right, throughout the key 4 assessment, you have had different models such as a video, in-person observation. Which one was more beneficial to you? Did you like the in-person observation with Ms. Lieberstein, or did you like the video that I sent over through the URL, through the email?
They were both good, but I did prefer the in-person observation.
In person, I feel like I feel the same way, is because you get to see it in a different environment. You get to see some of those strategies that you might always, in college have heard, but you get to see it in person and to see somebody, how they're wording it, and to see the reaction and the response of the students. So I 100% agree. So could you elaborate a little? What was one of the most, I know you mentioned a couple about her proximity control. What was the most beneficial thing that you took away from that week with Miss Lieberstein?
I would say definitely, the proximity control, and then also just seeing how she was reinforcing it. Because I kind of thought that just reminding them, like, don't forget, we need to follow our Hawk expectations. I thought that I was reminding them of those expectations, but hearing her specifically, are we having respect? Is that, following our expectations, like just being very detailed. Kind of reminded me that I should be doing that also, because they may not always be aware exactly what expectation they're not meeting.
Oh yeah, 100%.
So she did a really good job with that.
Yeah, 100%. She does a great job of checking for understanding with those expectations, not just repeating and repeating and repeating, but making sure to check for understanding of, okay, what don't we understand with that? So again, veteran teacher, she does an outstanding job in her classroom environment. So question number 5 was the model, the in-person observation, was it a good one, effective example, teaching strategies, why or why not? So we pretty much just covered that. Then was it beneficial to see the strategies modeled? So we've said yes on that. So we definitely liked the in-person observation because it gave you an opportunity to kind of see and adjust. And how are, I guess now another question off of the questionnaire, but how do you see yourself molding some of those into your classroom environment with those two students? Are you going to continue to redirect, or would you, try to do the more proximity control with them? Something that you could do with your philosophies?
Yes, both. Just because, like I said, I learned watching her that I do need to be more explicit in what my expectation is, and then also having the students move closer to me, like watching it in her classroom made it easier for her to manage behavior right next to her while continuing to teach.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a way that you can, modify those to make your own strategies, which is one of our questions was how would you make those strategies your own? So pretty much you just answered that question as well, is that proximity control could be a great thing for those two students of just standing by them and saying that you are aware of what they're doing. So sometimes, they'll try to get away with it just to see that line. And then if you set that firm expectation of, hey, this is where the line is drawn, I will make sure that, you're staying on task. And then remember, the whole point of it is student growth and student learning. And there's definitely learning occurring in the classroom. You can tell with the conversations and the observations that I've seen. And just continue to just refocus those students and continue to set those expectations. And we already saw through that last observation that they are working. So just stick with them for sure. So with that, on a scale of kind of 1 to 10, I guess to say, after watching Miss Lieberstein's class in her classroom environment strategies, how confident are you to implement those strategies effectively in your own? Do you feel that you're going to have to do some tweaking to meet your own philosophies with that, or is it going to be an easy transition with those?
I think that it should be an easy transition, because really they were small changes to what I was already doing. So I don't think that I would say a 9. Pretty
Yeah,
confident.
I agree too. Like I said, I mean, you were already pretty much doing those in your classroom throughout the other two Danielson approaches or observations that we saw. So, I mean, doing them without even knowing you're doing them right there is perfect. And then you had that reinforcement from her to get to see how she might word things. And that's really the biggest thing, is just how we word it sometimes, and then checking for the understanding. And again, to praise her, she does a great job of checking for that understanding. So I'm glad you got to see that observation, to see how she would be, or how it would be more comfortable in the class. But I agree 100%. I almost would have given you 10 out of 10 right there. Very good. So what additional support do you need to grow in the focused area of your instruction? So are there any aspects that need clarification on the classroom environment, such confusion or anything that I can help with that? Or are you feeling comfortable with the additional strategies?
Right now, I think that I feel pretty comfortable.
Yeah. And I mean, like I said, third year teacher already, the class leader, the team lead. So I would have to agree 100% that going above and beyond outside of the classroom for your professional duties as well as inside the classroom. So question number 10. So we focused on a positive reinforcement, proximity control, PBIS support, and clear expectations for the peer goals for this assessment. Which one would you say was the easiest to implement in your learning environment? You stated earlier that it was the positive reinforcement. Could you elaborate a little bit more on why you think that was the easiest?
I think that it was the easiest just because that's something that I have always kind of done in my classroom. So it's just what I'm most comfortable with. I didn't really need to make any changes. Whereas the PBIS system and the expectations was something that I needed a little bit of work on.
Yeah, just quick modifications with it, just adding. And I like I was saying, that's why I wanted you to elaborate on your classroom expectations, because you kind of go with both. You have your own set classroom expectations, which they align with the Hawk expectations, because at Hannon we have those Hawk expectations, and everybody in the school has those Hawk expectations. But sometimes even in the gym, I know that I have my clear-cut expectations, the 3 safety rules or the 3 rules. So making those rules of knowing what's different in your classroom that align with the Hawk expectations is very beneficial. But you could definitely tell you feel very comfortable going with that positive reinforcement. And again, I kind of took that away from you in our conversation, that I needed to use that more with our lower grades, especially of building that confidence and making sure that it is a positive reinforcement. So out of our 4 classroom environment strategies, which do you see using most as your go-to in the classroom management tool? Do you think that now seeing Lieberstein or Miss Lieberstein doing the expectations and proximity control, do you see that maybe taking over more of your positive reinforcement, or are you going to stick with the positive reinforcement as your main go-to?
Positive reinforcement will probably still be high, but very closely followed with making sure, because I feel like having all 3 really is what makes the classroom environment flow. So I would say very closely followed would be the clear expectations as well as proximity control.
Yeah, I think it's just a fine line of work decision. You don't want to just be content with just one. You want to make sure, because no student's going to be the same. They're all going to try to push that button or push the edge right there. So different strategies and how you implement those strategies is definitely going to help. And it's just a game that we're always trying to find something new to help that student out. So it's always going to be changing for sure. So excellent job of implementing those. Continue doing those and let me know if there's any way that I can help. I know we've got about 2 more questions that I want to hear. And this one kind of regurgitates what we've already did. So did you learn anything from the observation that helped you implement these classroom management strategies? I know you spoke earlier that you saw the way that Ms. Lieberstein talked with her students and checked for kind of understanding of that. Is that something that you're going to be doing in yours? And could you explain a little bit about how that worked?
Yes. So during the observation, she did reiterate what the expectation was. And then she also had the child, repeat back to her, like explaining to her what that means. So I think during the observation, one of the things is have respect. And she asked the child, okay, well, are you showing respect? And the child said no. And she was like, well, why not? What are you doing that's not having respect in the classroom? And when they, they answered and told what they were doing, that they were out of their seat and they were talking during the lesson. And she asked them, what would be a better choice? How could we change that? And that's just something that I wasn't doing before, where I was just like, oh, you're not meeting the expectation. So after watching her do that, and then I was able to talk to her too, like, well, what questions do you know to follow up with? I feel more comfortable being able to set those expectations and follow through with them, with my students.
Well, I'm glad that you're getting more comfortable with it for sure. So like I said, outstanding job. So I'm glad you got the opportunity to do that. And again, it's similar to teaching, we teach the material and we think as teachers, sometimes that's what we're there to do, but also, especially in 2nd grade and 1st grade, kindergarten, we're teaching those behaviors of what you're supposed to do at school. They don't always know that, we assume sometimes that they do know that. And when we start assuming, that's when we start seeing our classroom environment start to get a little chaotic. So again, kudos to you guys right there. I think that the 2nd grade group has done an outstanding job with behavior, eliminating that excess talking, continue buying into those strategies, continue to pick Ms. Lieberstein's brain if I can help out in any way as well. I definitely will. I have one last question. I know that for overall, do you feel comfortable with the learning process of the new strategies and developing and modifying these within your classroom? So I know we've kind of hit this question a couple times and you said yes. So moving forward, do you see any new strategies that we could come up with, or do you think that the multiple, I think we have now up to 6 or 7 different ones, do you think of anything else that we can do? I know myself or Ms. Lieberstein.
Right now, no. I think that everything together has been beneficial. And I'm going to just continue working with those. And, if any issues arise or if I have any questions, of course, I will let you know. But right now, I feel good with what we've developed.
Well, I couldn't agree more. Like I said, last observation, it was flawless transition in small groups from both the math lesson, the tail end of it I caught, and then also the reading comprehension. Students were on task. They weren't just being compliant in the classroom. They were engaged. They were asking questions. Even those 2 students that we continue to see excess talking with, they were on task, maybe giving them continue giving them more work. I know one is extremely gifted for sure, and I think sometimes boredom is the biggest thing for him. As long as you keep him busy, he stays on task. So excellent job from the planning instruction. Great job of implementing those strategies through that last observation. Professional responsibilities, you're doing outstanding. So through the Danielson report, the data looks outstanding. Continue doing what you're doing. If I can help you out in any way, or if I can get somebody to help you out, I know I'm more the physical ed, but classroom management is still classroom management. So if any way I can help out or get somebody that might be in that second grade content area to help out, just let me know. But I think that's about it for our Key 4 assignment for our post debriefing. Did you have anything to add that you might need?
Not right now. Just thank you for all your help.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate it. And like I said, I know we'll have our Key 5 coming up. So just be on the lookout for that. And then thank you again.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Bye.
Bye.